Hello, good evening, Tanse, and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. It's day 2 of the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. The Liberals invoked it last February to help end the 3-week-old occupation of downtown Ottawa by the Freedom Convoy. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
This was the scene in downtown Ottawa last February. Trucks, campfires and parties in the whole of the downtown core. And there were horns. This morning, 2 downtown residents were the first to testify. 22-year-old Zexi Lee is the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit against the Freedom Convoy. She was also behind the court-ordered injunction that put a stop to the horns. She testified it felt like the noise would never stop.
It was constant. It was like from day to night, even if it wasn't for every second, it was at least every other minute.
Victoria DeLaronde is visually impaired. She explained how the protest left her feeling trapped.
Immediately, there was no taxi, no Uber, no paratranspo, no grocery delivery, which I depended on, no taxi even to go and get some, no prescription delivery. Some way had to be figured out how to obtain all the necessities of life.
Natalie Carrier is the executive director of the Vanier Business Improvement Association. Even though her neighborhood isn't near the downtown core, she says businesses there were affected. Carrier testified it was clear that neither the city or the police were prepared.
To me personally, it was clear that the 70-kilometer train of trucks that crossed the country was not coming in for a small protest in a day. And to me, that Sunday night was the proof that, somebody somewhere had underestimated or not listened to the anger, frustration that at that point, large number of people felt.
The commission will hear from dozens more witnesses over the next several weeks. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
RCMP are working with a First Nation in Western Manitoba to look into potential graves. The investigation is happening at Minnegozibi Anishinaabe, also known as Pine Creek First Nation. It's about 400 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. Police were contacted last summer after a private contractor detected anomalies under a church using ground-penetrating radar. The church sits on the site of a former residential school. Survivors say abuses occurred in the basement of the church. We want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen so far tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also follow APTN News, or you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The Independent Investigations Office in British Columbia says they are looking into how a young man died in custody at the Williams Lake RCMP detachment. The Chilcotin Nation government says the young man was a band member. According to the Investigations Office, RCMP stopped a man and woman on a moped on a highway near the northern city. The man was arrested and taken into custody. Nearly 5 hours later, he was found in medical distress and died. The man's name has not been released. It has been a tumultuous week for the residents of Pond Inlet, Nunavut. What started out as a first of its kind for hunters in the high Arctic community has turned into a public health warning. Hunters in Pond Inlet harvested an orca on Monday. Yes, a killer whale. Residents in the community can't remember the last time that happened, if ever. The whale was cut up and distributed to community members on the beach before the meat was tested by territorial conservation officers. Turns out the meat tested positive for trichinella. According to this warning from the Nunavut Health Department, the symptoms are stomach pain, muscle pain, diarrhea, swollen eyelids, and sweating or weakness. And the department is urging hunters to have their meat tested to protect the community. All right, we have to step aside for a short break, but still to come, a new feature about the residential school era is making waves at film festivals.
This tells more about the history of what happened. And the more that movies go on like this, the more the history will be known too.
Welcome back to APTN National News. The Red Crow Community College has opened the doors of their new building on the Blood Tribe on Treaty 7 territory. APTN's Chris Stewart has the details.
We invited 17 mostly Blackfoot artists and commissioned them to do art pieces. So they will be put up throughout the building, and the elders' dream was that when the people enter the building, they will be entering the world of the Blackfoot.
This new 100,000 square feet community college is getting final touches as they wait for their official opening on October 20th. Construction crews have not stopped the Red Crow Community College from beginning classes, though. About 300 students are currently earning diplomas, certificates, and degrees, like a Bachelor of Indigenous Social Work, or certificates in agriculture, business admin, and more. The building can hold up to 900 students and 200 teachers. Now, the new school is welcoming students who will learn job skills and Blackfoot culture. Roy Weaselfat is the president and says all courses offer a Blackfoot curriculum. Calvin Williams is the elder rep for the school. He says every student will learn more about Blackfoot culture and history.
When a person enters this new building, it's going to feel like they're walking into a teepee. All our Mitsitapi symbols, the artwork that's here, they're going to be stepping back in time, and they're going to learn about who we were and who our ancestors were and what made them so strong to make us survive.
With the workout room, ceremonial space, elders lounge, library, and daycare beginning in January, it's an attractive option for students.
When our community youth see this great big building and they see the role models that are coming to school here, and also the past graduates of post-secondary, those are role models that they want to be like. So when they see this new building, they know there's a place I want to go to.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Blood Tribe, Alberta.
The 2022 Governor General's Awards in Media and Visual Arts opened for exhibition in Ottawa this week, and 2 Indigenous artists are amongst those being recognized for their creations, receiving $25,000 and a medallion for their work. But as APTN's Fraser Needham explains, it's not just about the monetary reward.
Inuit sculptor David Picticun calls this piece Dancing on the Moon too, now prominently displayed at the National Gallery of Canada.
But this particular one, she finally learned how, with the help of other shamans that coached her and taught her, like, you have to do this, that, and that. You have to behave this way. You have to be open-minded, and you have to know the rituals. So she followed all the rituals, and she was able to to dance on the moon.
Weaving ritual and custom into a piece of stone may seem natural to Pitukun, who's been carving and sculpting for 50 years, but he credits a Saskatchewan doctor for giving him the focus and vision to create by mentoring him in the early 70s.
He told me that I should collect stories from my people, And he said, collect the stories, collect the legends, and when you come back to the studio, just utilize these stories, and when you read them, images will start appearing. And
Cree artist Gerald McMaster is also being recognized for his contributions in the area of curation. A large part of his work looks at the silver trade between settlers and First Nations from the mid-18th to the mid-19th century.
But it quickly dawned on me that this notion of the trade silver really represented early relationships, early contact relationships. And the trade silver was one that was specifically geared towards peace and friendship. As we know, contact entails a lot of wars and skirmishes, maybe intermarriages, but a lot of trade for sure. And so this collection really represents that moment of early contact.
McMaster says it has taken a long time for Indigenous artists to get the recognition they deserve from art galleries like the one here in Ottawa, but it finally appears things are changing.
And I think to be recognized by your peers, by the Canadian art community, is significant. And because for so many years, I and other Indigenous curators and artists had been working to bring Indigenous artists out of the museum and into the art gallery, almost like taking them out of the dead spaces and into a more living space.
Pitukun agrees Indigenous artists now have the ability to present their work in the way they want.
It gives us artists that extra freedom to be creative. You can choose your own material, the scale of your works, and where you display. And everything else comes together slowly but surely.
And McMaster says it all makes for an exciting time in Indigenous art.
But now what they're doing, I think they're thinking differently. They're borrowing on traditional knowledge. They're looking at elders. They're trying to develop that really deep thinking that was part of our ancestral ways of being, ways of knowing, and bringing that into the present.
Pitukun, McMaster, and other Governor General's Awards recipients' work will be on display at the National Gallery until January 29th of next year. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A feature film about residential school is receiving huge recognition at film festivals across Canada. APTN's Tina House has this story.
Lights, camera, action. It was a big night for the cast and crew of the feature film Bones of Crows, as the stars of the film walked the red carpet to open up the Vancouver International Film Festival. The all-star cast, led by veteran actors Grace Dove, Michelle Thrush, and Glenn Gould, tells the story of residential school and the horrific abuses that so many endured. Written and directed and produced by Métis filmmaker Marie Clements, the film was shot in numerous locations across BC, including the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. Clements says she's incredibly proud of the entire team that worked so hard on the project.
I think this is one-in-a-lifetime films. It's not something that could have happened even 5 years ago. Yeah. So we're, incredibly privileged, but also understood the responsibility. And I think that's really what makes it kind of special tonight, is that we can celebrate together and understanding that these kind of outstanding Indigenous talent are here and they're here to stay. And just watch what's coming.
And not only on the eve of Truth and Reconciliation Day, but we filmed Bones of Crows while our youth, our babies were being uncovered on Sequamkulu, and we were there. So I feel like our through line and our experiences is so present, it's so in the past, it's so in the future, it's so intertwined.
For 10-year-old Tyler Peters, who is featured in the film, he says when he first watched the film, he became emotional because his own grandfather was forced into residential school, and he says more films like this need to be shown.
This tells more about the history of what happened. And the more that movies go on like this, the more the history will be known, too.
Producers Trish Dolman and Christine Habler of Screen Siren Pictures say they were delighted to team up with Marie to make this film happen.
It's our first time opening the Vancouver Film Festival as producers, so we're just honored and so excited to share Bones of Crows with the world.
So much story to tell here, and Marie has done such an extraordinary job in writing and creating and directing and producing, and we're here to help support her take this to the next level and to something that, you know, will, we hope, foster empathy, compassion, and understanding from all Canadians as to what Indigenous peoples of Canada have gone through at the hands of residential school and also colonialism.
We wanted this story to be told in a long narrative, and we want people to understand that it's still present. It's still present in our families, and it's being worked out, but also the resilience and kind of the pride we have in each other and in our families.
I just have a feeling that something bad is coming.
The film will be released next year, along with a 5-part miniseries set to air on CBC and APTN. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
All right, it's time for one final break. Still to come, a preview of tonight's APTN Investigates. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Peter Duck from the Saisi-Dene First Nation in northern Manitoba was able to catch this rare sight, a rainbow in the clouds with snow on the ground. Somehow it looks cold and warm all at the same time. Thanks for that, Peter. You can share your photos with us by emailing your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. We start on the East Coast, 17 in St. John's and 20 in Charlottetown. 16 in Happy Valley Goose Bay and 13 in Cartwright. 15 and some showers in Quebec City and 12 in Val-d'Or. 12 degrees in Toronto and 9 in rain in Sault Ste. Marie. Showers in 7 in Wawa and 7 in Big Trout Lake. 3 degrees and some showers in Churchill and 5 in Norway House. 6 in Barons River and 6 in Winnipeg. 12 degrees in Regina and 13 in North Battleford. 10 degrees in Buffalo Narrows and 7 in Uranium City. As we move west, 9 and some showers in Fort Chipewyan and 18 in Grand Prairie. 19 in Edmonton and 18 in Calgary. 19 in Campbell River and 18 in Bellacoola. Some showers in 15 in Prince Rupert and 12 in Fort Nelson. -9 in Rock River and Clear and +4 in Whitehorse. -3 in Norman Wells and 1 degree in Fort Simpson. -3 in Clear and Colville Lake and -3 in Inuvik. 0 degrees in Cambridge Bay and 4 degrees in Chesterfield. -4 and some snow in Resolute and +1 in Iqaluit. Tonight on APTN Investigates, Kenneth Jackson and Colin Crozier visit Fort Francis, Ontario, where women and children are being sexually exploited, often by the very people who are supposed to protect them. Kenneth, thanks so much for joining us here for a few minutes.
Thank you.
So you and Colin Crozier broke a bombshell story really this morning online. What can you tell us about what you found?
Well, let me read you the first 2 paragraphs. This is quite simply the story. A First Nation child welfare agency paid to protect vulnerable children has been directly involved in the sexual abuse of children in its care. From workers sexually abusing children to caregivers being charged for doing it, the history of Wichitawan Family Services is steeped in stories of abuse going back at least 27 years. WICHI is a child welfare agency in Treaty 3 based out of Fort Francis. And there's about 3,000 more words after that that detail all the abuse over the years.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, this is an agency you have been investigating for years. So how has the story sort of unfolded as you've been doing it?
It started looking into the death of a young girl who I talk about here, Sasha Raven Bob. But in the end of that investigation, I started hearing the stories of sexual abuse. I started seeing, finding the abusers, finding the perpetrators. And it's taken me 2 years, partly to get the will to do it, to find the documents and tell the story, and we finally have.
So, Kenneth, what has the reaction been like so far from this?
A lot of thank yous, a lot of finally, a lot of, oh my God, it's finally on paper. Everyone can see it. There's people calling me I've never heard from before. I didn't even know they existed. But I know the one thing, for every abuser and every victim we've identified being abused in here, there's at least 10 more. There is many more out there who I haven't been able to get to yet.
Wow, that's something else there. Now, you and Cullen Crozier also have an episode airing tonight on APTN Investigates. How does the episode airing tonight relate to what you just talked about?
See, TV is a bit of a different game. It's harder. This is always more of a written story, more of a podcast story in terms of what we did. So we did the written version of it. The TV version tonight, it touches on some of the people, some of the workers that were convicted of abusing children in care. But it also looks at the family aspect, children that were abused in the home, only to go in care and be abused, and then abused later in life. It kind of looks at all the layers of abuse in Treaty 3, from human trafficking to those, we confront a man accused of doing it. We kind of give you a layered approach of what is going on, so it's a bit of a more of an overview, whereas this story online people can go see is more of a focused, pinpoint, Wichitawan story.
And what's next for you and Cullen now, Kenneth?
Identifying more people, identifying more abusers, putting the stories on the record and letting everyone know that it might have been a buried truth, it might have been a buried poison, but we're going to unearth it. Because that's the only way out of this for people, and that's what everyone keeps telling me. Can I just unearth this? People need to talk about this. If abusers, not just abusers, but victims need to speak out and feel like someone's going to believe them. I want to give them the opportunity to know that, that we believe them and that we're going to do their stories and that finally someone's going to hear them.
Well, we'll have to leave it right there, Kenneth. Thanks for taking a few minutes. And again, your work is simply fantastic, so thank you very much.
Right on. Thanks, Daryl.
All right, that's all we have tonight on APTN National News. For more news, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Remember, stick around for the latest APTN Investigates, which airs right after the news. For all of us here, I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us. Miigwech, and have a great night.